I'm going to point out Mr. Swalwell's point about that young man, and I don't know the information on it, that he was detained. We have to do a better job, here on this committee as far as oversight goes. There's multiple problems that I see. We should do our absolute best in the department to not make mistakes. The number of 325,000 missing children is a problem. We shouldn't have that problem. My question is to Mr. Howell and Ms. Harper, when those babies came across the border and were touched by Homeland Security and then passed on to an NGO, I would think that the NGO should have responsibility of knowing where those children went, correct?
They should.
Are we aware of whether or not the NGOs have records of who took those children into custody? Because I would think that we should have the NGOs also in front of us answering those questions so we can find those children.
They should.
Do they?
That would be a great question for the NGOs.
Mr. Howell?
Congressman, in litigation, we have sued the department for record sets kept by the NGOs that the department has access to. Those record sets do not have a lot of information. That is by design. It is why the government offloads this responsibility to nonprofits so they don't have to answer your tough questions and have custody of this derogatory information.
So to clarify your statement, NGOs are not to be held accountable for data aggregation on children that they move from through their organization into custody of someone else?
They absolutely should be held accountable.
I know they should be, but are you saying that they are or are not?
Are not.
And that is in the language that has been created for NGOs to get government grants?
Correct. There are obligations on the recipient of grants to keep statistics, information, et cetera, and all sorts of other legal obligations that are upon them.
To add to that, they have a contractual accountability, but aside from contractual accountability, it ends there.
What you got?
Well, that's exactly the problem, because it's not just the fact that we have this massive volume of people, and so things are obviously going to slip through the cracks. So there's no way to really figure out exactly how many they ran through or how many they processed, because like Border Patrol at the time and Customs, they were overwhelmed because people had a greater incentive to arrive illegally because of the policies pursued by the Biden-Harris administration.
So to my understanding, for this committee and moving forward, we need to make sure that legislation states properly that any NGO, whether or not be it the Catholic organization or whomever, has to follow certain guidelines and rules, which obviously that is not in place, correct? And in order for us to maintain accountability for any and all who come through our border, child, whomever, into the United States of America, we need to know exactly where they are at all times, correct?
It should be tied in the contract along with the grant money that it is outlined who is responsible for the data collection and management, whether it's HHS or the NGOs, and if the NGOs are responsible, it needs to outline the requirements and the expectations of how to maintain.
So DHS needs to provide those standards to any NGO. Those NGOs need to have those standards passed on to anybody that's receiving a child.
If they're accepting the grant dollars.
Correct. So that's our next step. I would say that's pretty simple, right?
I would say the simpler solution is to stop funding the invasion of the United States. We can impose these standards.
Okay, I got you, buddy. I'm trying to go granular on this. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I'm trying to fix a problem that exists. We can bitch about it all day long, which we're just going to beat each other up and we're not going to go anywhere. I'm really trying to fix this problem, okay? Mm-hmm. So we have to move legislatively in order to solve that problem.
Right, and HR 2 contains a provision which would do a lot of that. It could also be improved.
Okay, so my next step as a congressional member is to write out legislation that both sides would agree on in order to fix this problem. That sounds like a pretty good fix, correct? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.